What's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm really excited about this episode that we're bringing to you with Radiance Videography Podcast. We have a special guest, Adam Dunstan. He works with Brody Allen Exteriors, a good friend of mine, and we just wanted to bring him on today to talk a little bit about his story, his background. They're very successful in business. Maybe talk a little bit about how some things that they've done to become successful. And I just want to introduce Adam. Thanks so much for jumping on this podcast with us and
appreciate you, man.
Talking a little bit about business, taking a little bit of time out of your day. I know this conversation is going to be fun because you have so much to offer. Yeah. You guys have had some great success, and man, I'd love to be able to introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background and your story, as far as business and how you guys got there and all that stuff.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, man. First of all, I'm very if you said, to me 7 years ago, 8 years ago, hey, somebody's actually going to want to have you come by and talk to them at all, I'd be very surprised, man. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah. I we'll see. No. Yeah. So, I guess, in the introduction, I was listening to you and I was hearing what you were saying. I'm like, maybe, right? Maybe, but no. So as far as how to get to this point right now is I got out of the Marine Corps and I didn't know what to do, and I had a relationship, and I started roofing because I had no other way to provide for my family. So I started roofing out in California in 2001. Ended up back in Missouri roofing. I had I was a partner in a small roofing company for some years. We really, there was a lot of new construction whenever St. Charles County was building up. 2008, 2009, it kind of hit a crash. So we kind of went on a downward thing for a while.
I remember that. I was doing a little bit of sales for a construction company around that same time, like knocking on doors and stuff. It was rough.
It was bad. We were able to get through that, right? And so continue to install roofs. I was able to provide for my family. I was able to do some things, but it was not a very fulfilling job. It got to be very, as I got older, my body started hurting and things like that. So I had an accident. I fell off and got injured, and the injury kind of led to some bad choices in my life, and ended up taking me down a pretty dark road. And for me, I believe in God. Intervened in my life. My youngest boy was born, and I needed to make some changes. So we were able to, God was able to push me into a really positive avenue. And so I was open enough to take that, and hear, for once, like, hey, we got to make some changes, dude. So started making some changes, got off the installing the roof section. I went into some, UPS and some other jobs that I didn't really love. And again, the opportunity to sell roofs or to help people, get new roofs or get their homes fixed after a storm was presented to me. And I was very scared because I've never done sales. I've never done, that kind of thing before. But I took a leap of faith and kind of led me into the path, that we're currently on.
Yeah. Man, that's incredible. I mean, I love what you were talking about there of how I'm a believer myself in the Lord, and he just has a great way of, when you're using those times when you're at a low moment and recreating something in a new start. And he's just, to me, so good that way. And it's incredible to hear your story of coming from out of that dark place, and moving forward into, kind of what you're it sounds like what you're saying is you had maybe new purpose and drive.
Yeah. To me, it's, and I'm speaking as possibly like an infantile in faith and belief. But this is just the understanding I have as I'm sitting here today is just an undeserving gift, like an opportunity to change from the old concepts, old ideas, the old way of life into, hey, and for me, I need to have my head slammed into the wall. Like, hey, wake up.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what it took. And I was able to listen. And so now it's a new life and just an undeserving gift, like an opportunity to change. Man. And it's, I'm getting goosebumps.
Dude, I love what you're saying. I mean, that's what the, it wasn't intended to go on this road, but like, that's what the gospel is all about, is give like a grace that's offered to us that we don't deserve.
Right.
And, God, God's so good that he uses, bad circumstances in our life sometimes.
Yeah.
Jesus even said on the Sermon on the Mount, like, blessed are those who are broken, for they shall be comforted, Right. And it's when you come to that place in your life where you're like, sometimes when you're broken and you don't know where else to turn to.
Yeah.
And ultimately it's a place where God can really use you and be like, man, I see you, I love you, I care about you, like, and I want something better for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the message of the gospel and the grace that's offered, so that's incredible to hear that. I'd love to be able to kind of move. So you got into the roofing industry, started doing sales. Can you take us a little bit, like what was kind of the next steps of that?
The first company I worked for was kind of just like, do you have a truck? And I said, yes. Do you have a ladder? I said, yes. They're like, okay, go knock on doors and call in claims.
Like, okay. Whoa.
I okay, right? And at the time, like I had no source of income. So, and I was desperate to, so I just did that. I was just knocking on doors and talking to people and trying to
figure it out yourself.
Trying to figure it out on myself, which I'm fairly decent at, as through life, I'm fairly resourceful, but excuse me.
I'm sure like having a military background too really helped you out with that.
And just again, desperation.
Yeah, desperate.
And competitiveness, because I saw other guys doing it and they were doing, they were getting a lot of customers and stuff. So, but and I had no idea what I didn't know. Yeah. So I did that with that company for a while. And I got better as we learned. So I tend to work pretty hard to achieve a certain level. And then I just sit on that level, like rest on your laurels almost, just like, oh, look at all I've achieved. Right. And so
that's very easy to do.
It really is. And I also have a knack for if somebody wants to try and help me and kind of guide me in an area where I might not know a lot about it, I will shut that down because, how dare you, but again, and God speaking, I met Stephen.
Yeah.
And Stephen was just starting into the roofing industry, and I'd been, in the sales for about 2 years. And I saw, and he was asking me questions, right? He wasn't acting like, oh, I know everything, right? He was like, I know very little, and it seems like you know things.
Yeah.
Can you help me? And he was just constantly asking me questions, which is a new thing for grown men. For me, grown men don't regularly do that.
Yeah.
But his thirst for knowledge and his desire to learn as much as possible, like a sponge, was like, what? This is
inspiring.
Different. Yeah. And so he was working for a company. It didn't work out there. And so he's like, I think I'm going to do my own company. And for me, I'm not, I'm not like, I didn't have the courage to do that like he did.
Yeah.
And he's like, you want to be a partner in this? And I said, not really, because I didn't have much faith in anything really yet. But I watched him and he continued to ask me questions. And it was about 3 months later, he's like, hey, have you thought about this, in the insurance restoration business? And I was like, what is that? And he's like, well, I'm starting to see where, companies are doing this. Cause he's like he's on
Putting
Facebook.
all the dots together.
Yeah, he's on Facebook groups. He's freaking calling and getting coaches, and he's like obsessed about learning about this. To the point where in 6 months he went from not knowing much, right, to now I'm calling him to ask him about different things, different aspects of the business. And he's starting to do it, and he's starting to apply what he's learning. So so then he asked me, you know, he's constantly, hey man, you should come work for me. You should come work for me. You should come work. And so finally, about 5 months into it, you know,
It broke you down, huh?
well, not so much broke me down, but I saw in him, just, I trusted in him, and I saw him putting forth all this effort to learn and grow. And so we sat down and talked, and and I was like, here, man, you know, this is, you know, I've been in this industry for a little bit now, and what I'm seeing is a lot of people get into this industry for the wrong reasons, right? And it's almost always money, right? And you start to get a taste of it, and you change into this thing, right? To where, you know, the customer service, doing the right thing, it goes to the back, right? And I said, you know, I just want to know where your heart is in this, right? Like, you know, ultimately, and I learned from my first place where we need to, whenever we bring guys on to our company, man, we need to train them and give them a great chance to be successful, right? Give them a really fair compensation package. If they do or don't work out for us, right? We're not just, you know, just going to take their hard work and the money that we receive from that and just say you're beat, right?
Yeah.
We got to set up you know, and just where are you ethically and morally, right? And in those moments, right, whenever you're trying to recruit somebody, you're like, yeah, man, I'm all about spiritual concepts and da-da-da-da-da, and I'll tell everybody that, but I was like, hey, I'm not going to be a part of this if it goes to, it's about the money, right? And so he was all, you know, he's like, yeah, because he had an experience where he wasn't trained, and he was, you know, money was withheld from him, and you know there was a non-compete situation involved to where
he had experience with it.
Yeah, we had both experienced like being, you know, employed by companies that weren't operating. So, yeah.
I love that. If you don't mind me interjecting, because like, that's one of the big core principles for us too, as I started my company is like, well, first of all, I feel like Christ had to be the center of it, because, anytime you get like money or some sort of object, it can almost become an idol in people's lives, and their identity almost becomes in that. Like, if I get this, I'll be happy, and if I have this amount of money, I'll be happy, and whatever it is, it could be like a relationship. But the problem is, and you think about like all these like Hollywood actors and stuff, they have all this money, and you hear them over and over again talk about how like they're still not happy. It's because you're always reaching for something. There's always something new, and like I found personally, when you find your identity in Christ and you're like satisfied in Him, to know that, hey, like I don't need this or that, and I just want to honor you. Then you can live a life out of that where like, hey, I want to truly care about people. I want my mission to be like, how can I serve people like Christ did? And to me, ultimately, the byproduct of doing that ends up being you make a lot of money, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like people have got it reversed. And like you look at like corporate America in general, it's like even their employees, they just become a cog in the wheel, because they're just looking at them as a number and what's the bottom line. And to me, it's like, no, if you look at them as a person, treat them people like you love them and care about them the way Christ did, they're going to want to work harder for you. Yeah. They're going to offer a better service. And ultimately, all those just lead to, you know, the very goal that you wanted was to make more money.
Right. Yeah. No, you're, I mean, and that's what you're talking about, Jason, is very time consuming. Right. And as somebody that's quote unquote very busy, it's very easy for the KPI to be money and the bottom line, right? We can see the numbers, and we can this person's working, this person's not working, and motivate you by the money, the carrot, the money, and then if it's not the money, then the stick, right? And yelling and screaming and belittling. But what you're talking about, where we try to really focus, is the time consuming part of get to know you, get to know your family, get to know your kids, get to know your life, and what do you find, what's important to you, to help move you towards that next level, for me, and it's helping. I like when people like, man, thank you, Adam. Money doesn't really move the needle for me. Almost to the point of, I've been brought into the office like, dude, you've got to collect money,
Yeah.
It's to a fault. And I'm not saying this in this it's a serious problem for me. Like, but to take the time to learn your guys, to learn your freaking supervisors, your, all these guys and gals in our company, learn them, it's not just a dollar amount. So we've been, we've scaled at a decent pace, but it's not, we've not just brought, 30 guys in and throw it all against the wall and see if 10 can stick, with the money situation. We want to get to know our guys. We want to, a noble purpose, and so it's, and it takes time and energy from management and ownership to learn your guys and not just.
Well, you guys have done such a good job at this too. It just blows my mind because, like you said, a lot of companies are like that, but in particular in construction, it's very much so a dog eat dog world and like some of that stuff. But you guys have created such a good culture where, like, I've seen post after post. We've had your guys come in and do some video work, and they all just go on about, hey, we're so thankful for Steven and Katie and Adam and, like the leadership. I mean, they just rave about you guys. This is the best place I've ever worked for.
All right.
And they're just so grateful for like opportunities. And they're like, man, we're so excited about what's, future. And when you have a team of people that are doing that, I feel like you're doing something right.
Right. Yeah. And it's, thank you. And I'm getting goosebumps. I love it because we are doubling our sales staff this year.
Yeah.
So I've been I've been interviewing a lot of applicants and kind of talking to them, and they've asking me a lot of challenging questions, right? As men and women that are about to take a huge leap in facing some fears and going into a fully commission based job. They've got some serious questions where I've got to dig deep, and I'm thinking through our whole team, and I don't know that there's too many guys or gals that are they're all good human beings, and so it's cool, and I appreciate you saying that. But so and whenever Steve and I were talking at the beginning of before I decided to join him or not, to stay true to that, and we've had some discussions, man, where he's called me into the office, or I've gone into his office to talk. Hey, man, we're because as we scale and we become successful in finances and stuff like that, it can turn into and so it's we got to keep God first.
Keep the focus. Yeah.
We got to keep it on a noble purpose, right? Yeah. And so
I think that's something you always got to check up just in yourself on a regular basis. Like, am I staying to the core principles that I believe in, and am I being true to that? And am I really following after Christ? Am I because it can be very easy to just slide back into this kind of cocky, arrogant, like, oh man, it's all about me, and man, I did this, and I'm so great, and yeah,
dude, that is my base. That is my baseline. I wake up every morning singing my favorite song, me.
That's true.
So it's. I've got to, I got to get God involved like immediately and throughout the day, because I'll get angry, I'll get irritated, I'll get, whatever, or I'll start to think that I'm, that I'm not just here alive and being able to do things without God, right? I
Yeah.
think that I'm in charge, or I'm responsible for all my successes, and it's
Yeah. Yeah. And, I love goals, and I love, accomplishing things too. But sometimes too, when you create an idol, like what I was mentioning earlier, where it's just that focus of that, well, it's hard to stop and be present at the moment with, maybe people are going through struggles or going through something or whatever, but you're so like focused over here, and
yeah,
I've got to do this, that, or it might be your family or whatever. It's just like, you don't stop to recognize, like, being in the moment, being present, like caring about,
right.
people that you're talking to or whatever.
Yeah.
And I find that that's a very easy thing, especially for ambitious entrepreneurs. I love like the idea of setting goals and accomplishing things like that. But it's also a double-edged sword. Sometimes you got to really kind of constantly reflect.
Right. Yeah, because and yeah, it's so yeah. So we set off as the mission statement, right? We hired some guy. We hired Kyle. And
He's a great guy.
Yeah, I love Kyle. Kyle. And it was it took a lot of courage for him to be like, yeah, I know you guys are just working out of Steven's kitchen. No one knows who you are. We got our first wrap truck, and Kyle took a leap of faith and joined, and then John some about 4 months later, and then we were able to kind of move forward and kind of build the team on that. And then Steven's wife left her career to come help Katie.
Yeah.
And then fortunately there were some storms to where we could, listen, man, there's been a lot of learning going on here. We've put the wrong color siding on people's houses. There's been leaks, there's been mistakes, there's, all of that stuff. But especially in this industry, it's mistakes are going to happen, things are going to happen. It's how do you take care of your customer in those times, right? Good communication and fix it.
Yeah.
It's expensive to fix mistakes, right? But it's a small price to pay in the front end for a long-term, payout in the back end. And so that's what I'm really, 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 I would love to say that, we've got processes, procedures, and nothing goes wrong ever, right?
Yeah.
But things go wrong a lot. It's how do we handle that? And Steven especially has really, really put, and Matt and Dustin and our whole production, Nick and JC have really put a lot of time and effort into fixing the mistakes and making it right,
That's just a great principle in life, period. Like, have you ever read the book called Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey?
You've told me about it.
It's a fantastic book, but he talks so much about how trust is at the core of, in particular, business, but also personal trust.
Right.
There was a particular chapter, and I used to use this a lot whenever I was coaching people with fitness stuff.
Okay.
But like, he talks about in this particular chapter is when you tell yourself you're going to do something and you don't follow through with it, you end up creating that habit in your life, but then also you start losing trust with yourself, and you end up getting to where you don't have any belief. And the example he gave, he's like, man, I decided I was going to, start getting it healthy and get in shape and stuff like that. So I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. every morning, and I'm going to work out and whatnot. And then he said he'd, a lot of times be up late working on projects and stuff like that till like midnight or whatever. And then morning came around, hit the snooze and never woke up. And he said he did that so many times over a certain amount of period. He was like, why am I even like setting this alarm? I know I'm not going to even get up. So like he lost confidence that he was be able to do that and the follow through. But he also talks about that in business. He talks about how trust can be like a hidden tax on your company. He said if trust is really low, then you're always going to assume there's like a hidden motive.
Right.
And all the process is slow down, which costs you more money. And then, but when trust is high, he gave examples how like Sam Walton would do deals with just a handshake because he had such high trust with people.
Yeah.
It'd be multi-million-dollar deals, but there was this huge trust between people he was working with and him, and like things just moved really, really efficiently because of that.
Right.
And I was like, man, that's such a huge. It was a really good. The whole book was just amazing, but it's just so true, and everything you're talking about principally in life is not only you want to have high trust in your company, but high trust with yourself, to follow through. And
you just said a lot. Like the first part about the trusting yourself, I never knew that. I until my late 30s, I didn't understand about self-integrity. I would always say, I'll do this tomorrow. And if I didn't tell you, then I would just hold myself accountable, and I didn't care about me enough to say, okay.
Wow.
And so I was given that, much like you're talking about, where if I say I'm going to set my alarm for 5 and I'm going to go to the gym and I don't do that, as soon as you wake up, go look yourself in the mirror and say, screw you, Adam. I don't love you. I don't trust you enough to follow through with what I told you.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a hardcore look at it, but that's something I can understand. But then, much like you were talking about with the trust, and I've not really thought about it, because I've certainly been in companies or places where I didn't trust my manager, I didn't trust my ownership or whatever. But I've just been in this culture with this company for this entire time, to where it doesn't even enter my mind whether or not I trust the ownership. It's just, and I take it for granted of, if it's said, it will be done, and I can just trust that it will be taken care of, and that is, until you were talking about that, I've been over. That's crazy, because I've talked to other sales reps from other companies and things, and they're like, yeah, man, we just can't get our stuff together. We can't get the repairs out. I've got all these customers, they're angry, and there's no communication with the production team. We don't even have a guy that can fix it, and this and that. And it's just like, I remember us going through those struggles, but with the team we have now, we have the pieces in place and the systems in place to where it goes here. Now, is it going to be fixed in, I want it done now? That's not reasonable, but it will be taken care of in our product. Dustin, JC, Nick, Matt, they're going to get that taken care of for us, and it's something and Steve will make sure too. So the trust is there, and
it's so comforting to have that trust, but also as an employee, like it just makes you want to do better and work harder, and you enjoy where you're at, enjoy work a lot more.
Whenever you're talking to homeowners, if I've got to, if I don't trust my team, but yet my income depends upon telling you something, it takes a lot of energy to not be genuine.
That's a great point, because I remember kind of back that when I was doing some of the construction sale stuff it was actually my cousin's roofing company, and I remember like promising all this stuff to the owner, and then they weren't showing up on time, and not communicating with the customer, and then like they were coming back, the customers coming back and yelling like you said, like, so it made me look really bad.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I remember,
and so that's in our culture. We if we catch you lying to homeowners, man, you're done.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
Yeah.
And so we want to build the team. We want to build the culture to where I can come to you, and if I don't know, I'm going to just be honest, right? No, I'm not going to be able to wrap your full house in siding. Your policy, but you're going to be like, well, this contractor said that they'll be able to wrap my whole house in siding. I was like, if they can, I'd love for that to happen for you, but I'm just going to be realistic. It's highly unlikely. We will try.
And the odds are them telling you that but not following through, and then you're going to be at the end of the day.
Yeah, if I don't cast shade like that.
Right, but that's the reality of it.
Oh, yeah. The Wentzville storm hit, and I was in a neighborhood, and and at the time we didn't have a window referral partner, right? And so blah, 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 said that they can do windows and a full siding and they're going to get me a whole new deck and all this stuff. And I was like, can you do that? And I was like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what do you mean no? I was like, no, I don't think you're going to be able to get a new deck. Your deck's 4 years old.
Yeah.
I don't think that's possible. You know, we can power wash and stain it, you know, but it's highly, I want to set the expectations for realistic expectations, you know? And then we were able to get a roofing or a window referral partner to where then we could start working on windows and stuff like that.
That's cool.
You know, I lost some deals, you know, and then, you know, 6 months later, 7 months later, these customers that I was working with, or they went with the other company, are calling me, hey, this dude's not calling me back. You know, they did the roof, the high profit margin portion of the project, but he's not calling me back on my windows or my siding. Can you come out? And at that time, it's like, man, you know, I can't.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to help you, but we've already kind of broken that trust, right?
Yeah.
So,
and this is so good that stuff that people can take in just even their daily relationships.
Right.
You know, it's like, man, it's so good. But man, I'd love to go back to, you know, you and Steven, that, you know, kind of go back to where you're at. You started getting some traction and stuff. Can you tell us a little bit more, like from that point on till now, present? And you guys have, I know you're really humble, so I know you're not going to brag about yourself, but Brody Allen's had a lot of success over the past couple of years. And it's been, I mean, I've just known you a little over a year, and
almost 2 years, Jason. Almost 2 years.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. It goes fast.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to be able to kind of you talk a little bit from there, and you know, moving forward to where you guys are now.
So as I alluded to, you know, Brody Allen or Steven was we weren't able to work in St. Charles County because of a non-compete situation. And so we were in St. Louis County and Lincoln County and things like that. And so it made it a little bit more difficult. You know, we weren't able to work with our neighbors.
Yeah.
But we were able to get through that. And just, you know, learning as we go, you know. Again, I alluded to Steven was asking me, which at the time I was, you know, but then he started growing. He grew past me, right, in a very quick amount of time, to where he started asking, you know, more successful people, more, you know, and, you know, we made some mistakes, man. There's some marketing things we bought into and, you know, that failed and then had built the website like 3 or 4 different times. But just kept pushing through and kept pushing through. So he's the leader, man. Steven's the leader. And he's also extremely humble. He does admit when he's made mistakes. He does admit that, you know, this was an emotional thing, a reaction. He owns his mistakes and he'll apologize, which to me is such a huge show of a man, like a spiritual man, like a godly man. And he won't say that, but for me, I will. But iron sharpens iron, man. And you know, I'd love to say that, you know, I've leveled him up, but no, it's just constant. And then our team grows and grows, and they're starting, you know, they level up. And so just a lot of learning, just a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
A lot of saying that is a mistake instead of trying to just cover it up, admit to the mistake, learn from the mistake, apologize if it's, you know, if it's required, and make it right, and then move on. But yeah, it's such a great, it's the hardest thing I've ever done as far as just the growth, because I'm one that will get comfortable and sit in my comfort. But in this industry and as we're growing, man, the next level is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then you learn, make mistakes, learn the next level. And it's just, now it's fun to go to, you know, and I'm not talking about financial levels or airplanes or car. I'm talking about communication or learning a new technology or learning a new CRM or learning another app that can help my team out, or learning a certain personality type of a sales rep that this doesn't work, this doesn't work, and this doesn't work, and getting to that next, what motivates this individual to move the needle forward. So that's the levels I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, you know, materialistic levels, just emotional, spiritual, physical levels, you know, and different things like that. So it's so fun.
Yeah. Well, I think what's like pulling a piece of what you just said is you were talking about failure. And I think so many people look at like they failed or there's failure is a bad thing, you know, but it's like, it's just such an opportunity for growth and to get better, and you fail your way to success, right? Like, it's not like that one failure is just one piece of the overall journey, you know, and hopefully that people can be listening and hear what you're talking about and be like, man, like, that's so cool. Like it's okay to fail. It's okay to have mistakes or whatever, but it just takes you to the next step. If you don't learn from it and grow from it, then that's where I think the huge problem is, you know.
And for, I assume you played sports for every, you know, growing up, and every locker room, every, you know, motivational teacher, you know, failure, you know, either you win or you learn, and all the different things. I always thought that was complete BS. If I lost, I lost.
Yeah.
And just through God, through being a part of this company, learning that you know, making mistakes is okay. Like, again, I'm a late bloomer in a lot of areas that we're talking about, and it's you know, failure is an opportunity to learn. And my age now, in my life right now, it's so relieving to understand, like, if I make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. I can own it. You know,
you know what's crazy? What you said earlier about how, like, you used to block off, like, coaching and people that would, you know, whatever, like, that was a bad thing. And I mean, obviously you've grown so much, because, like, even the time I've known you, like, I can't picture that, because you're honestly always, I've noticed, always, you know, asking or learning or growing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's so cool, because I mean, it just says a lot that you've obviously grown a lot, and because I wouldn't be able to even, you know, recognize that.
Well, and again, I've always watched people, right? And I don't want to sound as though I'm raising Stephen up onto something. You know, I know he's a human, he's equal to all of us, but I've watched him ask questions. I've watched him humble himself and ask others that know something. And then he takes that information and decides whether or not to apply it or not. And I've watched his growth in all, not just business, but as a father, as a husband, as an altruistic helper of other people, at the speed of growth that since I've just watched him. I'm like, well, if that is working very well, I will start doing that. and so that's what, you know, I started to do that, you know, because I saw him ask questions and learn and grow, like, crazy fast. And he still is. And so that's why
thought in my mind when you say that too is, like, man, think about, like, there's all types of, like, these life coaches and stuff that go out and get, like, these, like, certificates, you know, but, like, those people really have the results in their life that they want, you know, that you want, you know, like, something I learned a while ago is, like, look for people that really are living it and have fruit on the tree, you know, and learn from them, you know, and
the relationships.
So often it's like there's so many people out there that want others to just follow them and follow their advice while not really living it out or having the fruit that, for example, even in business, there are a lot of very successful people financially.
Sure.
But when it comes to their relationships and everything else, I'm like, man, I wouldn't want, and so, like, like you were saying earlier, if money is the only success measure, like, that's great. Go out and learn from them and do what they did. But like, if you're wanting to not only, like, to be truly successful in all areas and be able to have good relationships and whatever, like you might want to, think about that and look for people that do have fruit on the tree in those areas.
Right. One of my mentors that outside of business that is really key to me, like, he's got a great marriage for 26 years. Him and his wife are both very fit. They have a beautiful home. They have 3 beautiful children that are, getting scholarships to great schools, and the kids love to be around them, and they're coaches and they're there for their kids. And and they're good in the community and all, and also they have an in-ground pool and a beautiful home, right?
Awesome,
so,
yeah.
you know, it's like, I love that. And that's so, but most importantly, man, it is truly, you know, your relationships, you know, how are your relationships?
You're not going to get to the end of your life and be like, man, I wish I would have made so much more money and worked harder and stuff like that. You're going to think, man, you know, like my relationships, I wish I would have spent more time with this person or that person or hung out with my kid more. Or, you know,
my grandpa on his deathbed, we were up there in Peoria, and he passed away after and at the time I was a workaholic, and you know, and my grandpa goes, Adam, as I'm laying here dying, I'll tell you that I'm not saying to myself, I wished I would have worked more.
Wow.
And that was one of the last things he said to me. So what you alluded to.
Wow, it just gave me goosebumps, man.
So I've really you know, I try to grab a hold of that. And again, you know, whenever Stephen and I first talked, I said, man, I've got a value, and one of my values is to always be there for my kids.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's Saturday soccer practice, I'm going to be at Saturday soccer practice. If it's Thursday night gymnastics, I'm going to be at Thursday night gymnastics. Right. I'm not going to be taking a call.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be responding to an email. I'm not going to be texting you back. Just understand that is one of my values.
Man, that's so cool.
And that was given to me by another mentor, right?
Yeah.
And he respects that, you know, and I'm able to, you know, get all of my tasks done in the 50 to 60 hours a week I've allotted to work, so that I am there for the kids. And, you know, like this morning I had my boy going to gymnastics, open gym, you know, and so these are important things, man.
Dude,
you got to.
What you said reminded me of something else that I heard a guy present one time, and he drew out a pie chart, and he's like, you know, he asked, you know, what you do in a day, and you know, you sleep, you have a certain amount for sleep, and you have a certain amount for work, and a certain amount whatever, and draw out like that pie chart of all the time that you spend it. And then he said, list out your priorities. Like, what's your priorities? So like mine would be like my faith in God, and then my family, and then my health. And then for me, I would put like my finances underneath that. And then he said, well, ask yourself, how much time are you putting in the things that you call your priorities versus like, so in a lot of ways I was putting the work and finances way above the stuff that I said was my priorities, you know, and not that you don't, you know, when you're working and you're doing your thing and, you know, grinding while you're there or whatever, great. But that was a big wake up call for me, and it was actually a great tool that I used when I was like coaching people in fitness, because it's like, hey, we need to start out and figure out what is your priorities, like what do you want the next 10 to 20 years your life to look like, and let's list that out, you know, because so often people would say, well, I can't, you know, focus on my health and stuff because this and this, and like, well, like, okay, let's list out your priorities, and this will help. This helped me to be able to say, like you were saying, Stephen was saying, like what to say no to, like, and it becomes very simple, because if you've got your priorities listed out, you don't have to be everything to everybody all the time, and like there's things that you can say no to and
absolutely
whatnot.
Yeah, I also was given that tool, but and I think you can relate to this. Most people can. Is, you know, we get these intellectual nuggets where it's like, dang, eye-opening that you're at a convention, or you know, your certain, you know, pastor says something like, dang, you jot it down in a notepad that you'll never see again, and you're like, I'm going to remember this forever, forever. And then 4 days later, you're back to being in that same that same path you're always on, and then you're sitting here talking to Jason Dames like 2 years later, and it's like, oh yeah. That's in my forever notebook that I don't even know where it is anymore. So I appreciate that, man.
Well, that's what I love about you is your humility, man. I think to me, humility is one of the traits, especially in the Bible, that is spoke of one of the most. I mean, I know like Moses in Old Testament, he was he was just amazing. And God spoke of him as the most humble man that lived on the earth, and how much that you know, that obviously meant a lot. And so I see that in you, and I appreciate it. And
Yeah, man.
I love this conversation. Love to be able to do more of these, because I think you have so much to offer.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because we're going to be filming some stuff for Brody Allen, and
for sure,
hopefully here in the near future. And
get the great Stephen Moss.
Excited about getting Stephen and you guys talking about some of this stuff. And I think it'll be valuable information to offer to the world that other people can take back. I hope people that are listening to this conversation can take some of these things and be like, man, I really enjoyed that. So I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you very much, Jason.
God bless you guys. If you guys like these videos, make sure you like, subscribe, share, do all the things.
I don't know.
Smash it. Yeah. And we got some other videos you can check out as well. So God bless you all. Have a great day, and peace.